My name is Ryan, and until last year, I rented the basement level of a small split-entry house in Colorado Springs, not far from Palmer Park. It was cheap, close to work, and the owner, a quiet guy in his 50s named Mark, lived upstairs and barely made a sound. We shared a kitchen on the upper floor, but besides that, the downstairs was basically mine. Small living room, bedroom, and a side door that led directly to the driveway. I liked that door. It made the place feel like a separate apartment. But looking back, that door is the reason everything happened. It started on a Thursday night. I'd worked a long shift and spent the evening winding down with a late dinner and some YouTube videos on my phone. Around 1 a.m., I heard footsteps upstairs, heavier than Mark's usual shuffle. Slow, rhythmic, like someone pacing. I assumed maybe he'd had a late-night snack or couldn't sleep. But then I heard the footsteps come down the shared staircase, the door at the bottom. The one leading to my living room was locked. I always kept it locked. I heard the handle jiggle faster and faster until it stopped. "Mark?" I called out. Dead silence. I waited. No answer. No footsteps going back up. Just nothing. I shrugged it off, figuring maybe he was half asleep and forgot which door led where. But something about the silence afterward stuck with me. Like someone was standing there on the other side of the door, listening. Friday night was worse. It was around midnight when I heard it again. Footsteps upstairs. Then the staircase, then the basement door handle. But this time, there was something else. A whisper. I couldn't make out the words, but it sounded like someone murmuring right outside my living room, so close that I felt it through the floor. I grabbed a flashlight and walked to the door. "Mark?" I said again. No response. But as I pressed my ear to the door, I heard breathing. Not soft breathing, heavy, like someone had just run a marathon. I backed away and called Mark's cell. No answer. When I finally worked up the nerve to walk back to the door, the breathing had stopped. I barely slept that night. Saturday morning, I asked Mark about it. He was pouring coffee when I came upstairs. "Hey, did you come downstairs late last night?" My door handle kept moving. He looked genuinely confused. "No, haven't been down there in days," he said. "Why?" I told him what I'd heard, and he shrugged it off as settling noises. But the look he gave me wasn't dismissive. It was uneasy. Like he knew something. The next night confirmed it wasn't settling. Saturday was quiet until around 3 a.m. when I woke to the sound of my bedroom closet door sliding open. Slowly, deliberately. At first, I thought I was dreaming. But as my eyes adjusted, I saw the thin sliver of darkness dividing the closet door from the frame. It was definitely open more than it had been. I sat up. Then the worst sound of my life followed. Something exhaled from inside the closet. A slow, raspy breath, human, deep, and way too close. I scrambled for my phone and flicked on the flashlight. The beam hit the closet just as the door slid another inch. I jumped out of bed, ran to the living room, and grabbed the metal bar I used to prop up the window. My heart was pounding so loud I could feel it in my teeth. For 5 minutes, I just stood there, staring at the hallway to my bedroom. waiting to see a shadow move, waiting to hear another breath. Nothing. Finally, after hyping myself up, I approached the bedroom again, phone light held out in front of me. I yanked the closet door wide open. Nothing. Just clothes, boxes, dust. I checked behind the clothes, the corners, the ceiling. Empty. But I knew what I heard. Sunday morning, things escalated. When I woke up, I noticed it immediately. The side door, the one that led outside, was unlocked. Not just unlocked, open. Only by maybe an inch, but enough for cold Colorado air to leak in. My stomach dropped. Someone had come in, or gone out. I called Mark again, more insistent this time. He came downstairs and inspected the door. "I swear I locked it," I told him. He put his hands on his hips. "This place is old. Maybe it didn't latch." But he wasn't convincing either of us. That evening, I installed a small magnetic alarm strip I picked up from Walmart, the kind that makes a loud beep if the door opens. It wasn't much, but at least I'd wake up if someone tried to come in. But that night, it wasn't the door. Around 2:30 a.m., the beeping suddenly went off. I bolted upright, but the beeping wasn't coming from the side door. It was the basement door, the shared door between my living room and the upstairs. The door Mark supposedly never used. Except, the alarm wasn't designed for that door. It couldn't have triggered. Something else made the noise. I opened my bedroom door and looked into the living room. Someone was standing behind the basement door. I could see their silhouette through the frosted glass. Tall, hunched, head tilted, not moving, not speaking, just standing there. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. Then, tap, tap, tap. They knocked, slowly, deliberately. 3 evenly spaced taps. I dialed 911 with shaking hands, whispering into the phone. The dispatcher told me to stay quiet and stay put. Something worse. They found a crawl space. I didn't even know the house had one. Behind a panel in the upstairs hallway, one I'd never seen opened, was a dark, narrow space between the walls. Insulation, wires, the wooden frame of the house. The silhouette remained. Didn't move, didn't speak. Not even when I heard the sirens outside. Only when the officer pounded on the outside front door did the silhouette finally turn, the head jerking unnaturally fast, and vanish up the stairs. By the time police entered the house, the intruder was gone. But they found something else, something worse. They found a crawl space. I didn't even know the house had one. Behind a panel in the upstairs hallway, one I'd never seen opened, was a dark, narrow space between the walls. Insulation, wires, the wooden frame of the house, and footprints, human footprints, leading from the crawl space down into the wall cavity above my basement. He'd been inside the walls, listening, watching, waiting. They found a nest of sorts behind the insulation. Food wrappers, a sleeping bag, a cracked phone, and a small pile of my belongings that had gone missing weeks earlier. He'd been living in the house long before I moved in. And Mark? The police questioned him for hours. Eventually, he admitted the truth. He'd been renting the upstairs for cheap because the previous owner found out a homeless man had broken in once and lived in the crawl spaces for months. They thought they sealed it. They didn't. I moved out 2 days later. Mark apologized 100 times, but the apology didn't matter. What mattered was the moment I realized something I still haven't shaken. The man didn't break in that Thursday night. He was already there. He had been there every night. The footsteps, the breathing, the unlocked doors, all of it was him, listening to me, moving around me, waiting. And the worst part? Sometimes late at night, in my new apartment, I swear I still hear tapping. 3 slow taps, like someone reminding me, I know where you sleep. I moved to Estes Park in late September of last year. I'd just come out of a rough breakup, and my friend Dylan offered me a chance to house sit his uncle's cabin off Twin Pines Ridge Road, about a couple miles from the Beaver Meadows entrance to Rocky Mountain National Park. It was beautiful, quiet, remote, exactly what I needed. The cabin sat on a slight incline at the edge of dense lodgepole pines. No neighbors, no hikers nearby. Just a dirt driveway, a creek running behind the house, and a view of the mountains that looked like a painting. At least during the day. At night, the woods felt different, alive, watching. The first 4 nights were peaceful. I'd read on the deck, listen to the wind through the trees, maybe have a drink before bed. The cold was settling in early that year, so the air always had that sharp, almost metallic chill. But on the 5th night, something changed. I was sitting on the deck just past midnight when I heard it. A single crack of a branch from deep in the tree line. Not an animal scuttling, not wind, a deliberate, heavy step. I stood up and scanned the dark, but my flashlight only reached a few yards before the forest swallowed the light whole. I told myself it was probably an elk, maybe a mule deer. But then, the cabin's motion light flicked on by the driveway. Something was close enough to trigger it. I didn't see anything when I stepped around to look, but the feeling of being watched clung to me like glue. That was the first night I locked both deadbolts. The next day, I found footprints. Not animal tracks, human footprints. Bare footprints. They started near the edge of the tree line and ended about 15 feet from the cabin porch. Long, narrow, adult-sized. And the strangest part? They pointed toward the forest, like someone had been standing and watching the cabin, then walked backward into the trees. My stomach turned. I called Dylan to ask about anyone else who might be around. No one's up there this time of year, he said. My uncle doesn't even come by until late spring. I tried to let it go, but something felt wrong. The nights kept getting worse. On the 7th night, the tapping started. I was lying in bed around 2 a.m. when I heard it. Tap, 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 against the window over the headboard. My heart jumped into my throat. That window was a good 8 feet off the ground from the outside. I didn't move, didn't breathe. I just stared at the ceiling, waiting for another sound. And then I heard it, a slow drag of fingertips across the glass. Not wind, not branches. Fingers. I grabbed my phone with shaking hands and flipped open the camera, shining the screen's light toward the window. But the curtains were drawn. I didn't want to open them. I wasn't ready to see what might be staring back. I stayed awake until dawn. The next morning, I checked the window. There were smudges, pale streaks on the outside of the glass. Long, vertical lines, each about the width of a finger. Someone had been touching it. I felt nauseous. I packed a bag and put it by the door in case I needed to leave quickly. That night, I didn't sit on the deck. I didn't read. I locked every window and turned off every light except the living room lamp, hoping the glow would make me feel less alone. It didn't, not even close. Around midnight, the motion light came on again. This time, instead of freezing, I forced myself to look through the side window toward the driveway. Something moved. A tall shape at the edge of the light. A person. I ducked down instinctively and peeked again. The figure took a step forward, then stopped, just at the boundary where the light faded into shadow. They were staring at the house, not moving, not speaking, just watching. I backed away from the window and grabbed my phone. My hands were trembling so badly I almost dropped it. Just as I was about to dial 911, the motion light went out, and in the darkness, I heard footsteps, slow, heavy, circling the cabin. Leaves crunching, branches snapping, then nothing. I called 911 anyway. The dispatcher told me that officers were already patrolling near Mary's Lake Road and could come within 20 minutes. I sat on the floor between the couch and coffee table, trying to steady my breathing. At some point during the wait, I heard something from under the house. A floorboard creaked, then another. Someone was moving below me, in the crawl space. I covered my mouth to keep from making a sound. The footsteps pressed upward against the boards, as if the person was testing where they were weakest. I whispered to the dispatcher, "He's underneath the cabin." She told me not to speak unless necessary, to keep hidden, to stay on the line. The footsteps moved toward the backside of the cabin, toward the bedroom, toward the wall under my bed. A scraping sound followed, like fingernails dragging along the beams. I couldn't breathe. Then everything went silent. Not quiet, silent. Not even the wind moved. After maybe 3 minutes, the dispatcher said the officers were pulling into the driveway. I didn't hear the intruder leave. No footsteps. No scrambling. No movement. When the officers searched the crawl space, they found something. A flattened section of earth where someone had been lying. A tattered sleeping bag. 3 empty water bottles. A small metal tin containing cigarette ashes. And next to the sleeping bag, a mirror, propped upward, angled directly toward the cracks in the floorboards beneath my bedroom. He had been watching me sleep for nights. maybe longer. They didn't find the man, not that night, not the next morning, not in the days that followed. They said he may have been transient, mentally unstable, living in the woods. With how dense the forest was, he could have slipped deeper into it the moment he heard sirens approaching. I left that same morning, packed my car, thanked the officers, and drove straight out of Estes Park without even turning around to take a final look at the cabin. Dylan's uncle later told me that years ago, hikers reported a man living off Twin Pines Ridge, someone who kept to himself and watched cabins from a distance, but never harmed anyone. I don't know if that was the same man. I don't know if he meant to hurt me. I don't know if he followed me when I left. All I know is this: every once in a while, when I can't sleep, I swear I hear 3 soft taps on the window, even though I live nowhere near the woods anymore. I moved into a little rental house off Southeast 52nd Avenue in Portland, just south of Woodstock. A quiet, residential street. Old-growth trees, bikes on porches, people walking dogs at all hours. The neighborhood felt safe in the kind of way that tricks you into thinking bad things only happen somewhere else. The house had 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, and a cramped laundry room in the back that led to a set of wooden pull-down stairs into the attic. I barely used that part of the house. I didn't need storage, and honestly, I hated the feeling of standing under the attic door, like someone could be waiting on the other side of it. The landlord told me the attic was empty. I cleaned it out myself before you moved in, he'd said. He was wrong. The first sign came in January. It was raining. That endless Portland drizzle that feels more like mist than water. I was sitting on my couch, working on my laptop, when I heard a soft thump from the ceiling above me. Not a house-settling creak, a thump, like something shifting its weight. I paused the video I was editing and listened. Silence. The house was old. I convinced myself it was expansion, or the rain hitting the roof weirdly. I went back to work. But that night, just after 2 a.m., I woke up to another sound, a slow, dragging shuffle across the attic floor, right above my bedroom. I shot upright. The sound stopped immediately, like whoever made it realized I was awake. I stared at the ceiling until my eyes burned. It didn't happen again for the rest of the night. The next morning, I checked the attic door. The pull-down strings, 2 thin ropes, were swaying slightly. Not swinging, not moving with airflow, just trembling. I tested the air vents, checked windows, even opened and slammed a few doors to see if airflow paused it. Nothing moved those strings. Nothing except the attic stairs being pulled or disturbed. Despite my instincts screaming at me not to, I tugged the cord and lowered the stairs. A puff of cold, stale air drifted down. The attic was too dark to see anything with the light switch near the top of the ladder, so I climbed 3 steps and reached up, turning it on. It flickered to life. The attic was empty, completely empty. Wood beams, insulation, dust, but The dust looked disrupted. Broken footprints, like someone had walked through and tried brushing them away. But not well. The heel marks remained. I went back down, closed the attic, and tried to convince myself it was an animal. But deep down, I knew. A few nights later, things escalated. Around 1:30 a.m., I heard a new sound. Breathing. Faint, slow breathing. Not mine. Filtered from the vents near my bedroom door. At first, I thought it had to be airflow again. But then, I held my breath. The breathing continued. I turned off every fan, every noise. It was still there. A steady inhale, a shaky exhale. Someone was above the vents, above the hallway ceiling, in the attic. I didn't sleep that night. The next morning, I called the landlord. I explained everything. The thumps, the footprints, the vents, the breathing. He laughed. "Portland houses make weird noises in the winter," he said. "Old wood, animals, you're fine." I told him the attic floor had footprints. That got him quiet. "I'll send someone next week to inspect," he finally said. Next week. I didn't know how I was going to survive one more night, let alone 7. That night was the worst yet. It was around midnight. I was lying in bed, scrolling on my phone, trying not to think about the attic, when I heard something small fall onto the bedroom floor. I sat up and stared. There was something next to my nightstand, a little piece of wood. I picked it up with shaking fingers. It was a splinter, thin, old, covered in dust, like a piece of wood from the attic beams. It had fallen through the vent, right above me. I froze. Then I heard it. A whisper. A real human whisper, muffled by insulation and drywall. It came from the vent. It said one word. No. I stumbled backward, nearly tripping over my own shoes. My heart slammed against my ribs, my vision tunneling. That wasn't an animal. That wasn't airflow. Someone was up there. Someone who knew I could hear them. I backed out of the room and grabbed my keys, ready to leave the house entirely. But curiosity made me stop in the hallway. I thought, stupidly, maybe I imagined it. Maybe I misheard. I shouldn't have stopped. The attic stairs began to move. I heard the scrape of the wooden ladder shifting against its housing. Slow, steady, descending inch by inch. I stared at it, frozen. One of the pull strings twitched. Then the ladder dropped open halfway before stopping, like someone was hesitating. The attic light was off. I couldn't see anything beyond the dark hole above the stairs. I backed into the living room, grabbed my phone and dialed 911. "I think someone is in my attic," I whispered. "They're trying to come down." While I spoke, the ladder rose slowly back up, as if whatever had started coming down had changed its mind because I moved too far away. The dispatcher told me to get outside, but right as I headed for the front door, something made me stop dead. Another piece of wood fell from a vent. Then another. Then a low thud from above. The dispatcher heard it through the phone. "Officers are on the way. Go outside, now." I ran. The police arrived within minutes. 2 officers searched the attic, while I waited in the driveway, wrapped in a blanket one of them had given me. My entire body was shaking. After 10 minutes, they came down. "We didn't find anyone," one officer said. But, that word hung in the air. They took me outside to the side of the house, where the roof dipped low near the fence. The officer shined his flashlight at a panel along the eave, an exterior access panel to the attic I hadn't even known existed. The screws were gone, completely removed, like someone had unscrewed it from the outside and climbed in. They found signs of habitation: flattened insulation, a plastic water bottle, a torn sleeping bag stuffed behind a beam. Someone had been living there, watching me, listening through the vents, moving around while I slept. And worst of all, the officer told me the dust on the attic ladder handrail was smudged. Fresh fingerprints. He had been halfway down when I walked into the hallway. They never found him. Not even with drones, dogs, or searches through the neighborhood yards. The man had slipped into the maze of alleys and backyards, disappearing into Portland's night like a ghost. I moved out the next day. I don't think the landlord ever re-rented the place. He certainly didn't fix the attic panel. Not that it mattered. I never went back to check. But ever since then, vents make me uneasy. I sleep with a heavy dresser pushed against the one in my current bedroom. And sometimes, when the house is quiet and the air is still, I swear I hear a whisper behind the wall. A single word: no. I'm not someone who scares easily. I grew up hiking, camping, and spending long weekends alone in the backwoods of Arizona. But last fall, I learned something I wish I didn't. You're not always alone in the woods. And sometimes, the thing watching you isn't an animal. It started when my coworker Ava offered me her family's cabin. Her parents owned a small A-frame place tucked deep inside Coconino National Forest, about 30 minutes outside Flagstaff, near a trail known as Ridge Trail 14. They usually only used it in the summer, but October was slow at work, and Ava practically insisted I take a long weekend up there. "Just relax," she said. "No service, no traffic, no neighbors. You'll love it." At the time, that sounded perfect. The cabin was quiet, surrounded by ponderosa pines so tall they felt like walls. The nearest occupied property was nearly a mile away. The air smelled like cold dirt and sap, and at night, the sky was so clear that even the Milky Way looked close enough to touch. But the sense of isolation that first felt freeing started feeling claustrophobic the longer I stayed. My first night was peaceful. I made a fire, read a book, and watched the woods fade into blackness around the deck. No weird noises, no strange sounds. It was the second night when everything changed. Around 11 p.m., I stepped outside to get more firewood and froze the moment I reached the deck. The smell hit first, sharp, coppery, metallic. Blood. Fresh, I shined my flashlight toward the tree line. There, just beyond the beam, lay a half-eaten deer. Its body was torn open, steam still rising from it in the cold night air. Mountain lion, I thought. They're common, too common, honestly. But what bothered me wasn't the kill, but the tracks around it. They weren't paw prints, they were footprints. Human, bare, wide-spaced, pointing directly toward the carcass. And there were no returning prints. No sign that whoever stood there had left. My skin crawled. I backed up, shut the cabin door, and locked it. I barely slept. The next morning, I walked the perimeter of the cabin. I wanted to make sure nothing was disturbed. Everything seemed fine until I reached the back wall, where the bedroom window was. The dirt below the window was disturbed, indented. Someone had stood there last night, right under my bedroom window. My stomach turned. I tried calling Ava, but there was no service. I told myself I'd leave the next morning. I didn't want to drive through the forest roads at night. That was a mistake. That night, around 1 a.m., someone knocked on the door. 3 soft knocks. Not pounding, not frantic, just patient. I froze in the hallway, outside the bedroom. The knocking came again. Same rhythm. 3 slow taps. I stepped closer to the door, but not close enough to be seen through the small window. The porch light was off, but moonlight cast enough of a glow to see a faint silhouette standing outside. Tall, thin, facing the door but motionless. I reached for the cabin's flashlight and held it like a weapon. "Hello?" I called out. Silence. No response. No movement. Just a still figure outside my door. Finally, after maybe 30 seconds, the silhouette stepped backward, slowly disappearing into the tree line. I didn't hear footsteps. I didn't hear crunching leaves. He just blended into the darkness like he belonged to it. The smell returned around 3 a.m. That metallic tang of raw blood drifted through the vents, stronger than before. It made my eyes water. Something out there was bleeding, or something had brought blood close to the cabin. I couldn't force myself to check. I stayed awake until sunrise. Morning made it worse. When I stepped onto the porch, I immediately gagged. Sitting directly on the welcome mat was a deer head, fresh, eyes half open, and next to it was a handprint. A bloody handprint, pressed neatly onto the wooden railing. I packed my things in under 5 minutes. I kept the flashlight in my hand the entire time. I didn't even check the back of the cabin again. I didn't want to know. I bolted for the car, heart pounding so hard it hurt. When I started the engine, the forest felt alive, listening, waiting. I thought I got out clean. I didn't. A few minutes down the forest road, I slowed to avoid a fallen branch. That's when I saw him. A man standing between 2 pines, just off the trail. Staring at my car. He was filthy, layers of dirt on his skin, hair matted into ropes. No shoes, no shirt, even though it was maybe 40 degrees out. And his arms. His arms were smeared in dried blood up to the elbows. He didn't move, didn't step toward me, didn't hide. He stood perfectly still, head slightly tilted, like he was studying me. I hit the gas so hard the tires skidded. I didn't slow down again until I reached the main road. When I finally called Ava, she went silent. After I told her everything, she said quietly, "You saw him too?" Her family had stopped staying at the cabin years ago because strange things started happening. Dead animals appearing on the steps, footprints around the windows, tapping on the walls late at night. They assumed it was a drifter, but police never found him. Her parents never told her the details. They didn't want to scare her. They didn't expect anyone to actually stay there long enough to encounter him. Ava's parents called the sheriff. Officers found blood, tracks, and evidence someone had been living deep in the forest. But no man. He knew the woods too well, knew how to disappear. I haven't returned to that area since, not even for a day hike. And sometimes, when I'm driving home at night, I get a strange, sinking feeling. Like if I looked in the rearview mirror at the right moment, I'd see him sitting up in the back seat, head tilted, watching, waiting. The kind of man who doesn't live in the woods. The woods live in him. I lived in a small one-bedroom apartment in North Park, San Diego, just a few blocks from 30th Street. It wasn't fancy. Old pipes, thin walls, the occasional roach, but it was cheap and close to work. The bathroom was tiny, barely wide enough to stretch your arms out, and the shower's water pressure was miserable, unless you turned the handle just right. But it was home. At least until the night I learned I wasn't the only one using the bathroom. It started on a Thursday. I got back from a late shift at the coffee shop around midnight. I was exhausted, and a shower was the only thing keeping me from collapsing. As the water heated up, I noticed something odd. The mirror was already fogged. Not fully, not like someone had showered moments before, but faintly blurred, like leftover steam. I wiped my hand across it and shrugged it off. The bathroom faced west, so the sun sometimes warmed the pipes weirdly. Maybe it was just humidity. I stepped into the shower, letting the water hit the back of my neck. The white noise drowned out everything, and for a minute, I felt myself relax. Then the curtain behind me shifted. Just slightly, a soft inward sway, as if someone walked past it. I froze, listening. The apartment was quiet. No fan running, no open window. The air wasn't moving. I told myself it was pressure from turning the water on, but something about it felt wrong. The next night, it got stranger. I came home from the gym, kicked off my shoes, and went straight into the bathroom. The lights flickered when I turned them on. Nothing unusual. They'd been doing that for months. What was unusual was the mirror. It had a streak running down the middle. A long streak. Like someone dragged a finger slowly from top to bottom. I hadn't showered yet. The room wasn't warm. There shouldn't have been condensation at all. My stomach tightened. I touched the streak. It was damp, fresh. I checked the window, latched. I checked the front door, locked. Everything was secure. Trying to push the unease away, I turned on the shower again. Steam filled the room quickly, fogging the mirror until it was almost solid white. Halfway through rinsing my hair, I heard something. A soft exhale behind me. I spun around, shoving the curtain open, water dripping into my eyes, heartbeat slamming. The bathroom was empty, but the mirror had something written in the steam. 3 short lines, streaky and uneven, like written by a shaking finger. No. I stepped out of the shower so fast, I slipped on the tile and hit my elbow. It didn't matter. I tore out of the bathroom and spent the rest of the night awake on the couch, lights on, staring at the bathroom door until the sun came up. I called maintenance the next morning. I told them I thought the ventilation system was malfunctioning, that I heard noises in the pipes. They promised to send someone the next day. I didn't tell them. Someone wrote in the steam. That night, I showered with the bathroom door open, curtain half pulled back, lights on. It felt stupid, but I couldn't stand being closed in. Nothing happened. No shifting curtain, no exhale, no writing. I convinced myself it was stress. I shouldn't have. Maintenance never came. They left a note saying they'd rescheduled. No explanation, no apology. That night, I didn't want to shower at all, but sweat from the day forced me into it. This time, I kept the curtain closed, wanting to prove to myself I wasn't scared. I shouldn't have done that either. Midway through the shower, I felt it, a cold draft crawling across my ankle. The kind of cold you only feel when a door opens. I reached out and pushed the curtain aside. The door was open, wide open. I knew I closed it. I always closed it. That cold air seeped into the room like fog. Water dripped from my fingers as I stepped out, listening hard. The apartment was silent. No footsteps, no movement, no breathing. I took a towel, wrapped myself, and walked slowly toward the front door, checking the locks, the windows, everything. All secure. When I came back to the bathroom, my towel slipped from my hand. There were wet footprints on the tile. Human footprints leading out of the shower, past the sink, straight into the hallway. Except I hadn't been in the hallway yet. Someone else had. I didn't sleep that night. I sat on the couch again, a kitchen knife beside me, staring at the hallway. Every creak of the building felt like footsteps. Around 3:20 a.m., I finally got up to drink some water. As I passed the bathroom, I glanced inside. Someone was standing in the tub. Just a silhouette in the dark. Tall, thin, unmoving. My throat closed. I stepped backwards slowly and realized something horrifying. The tub was empty, but the shower curtain, which I always left fully open after the last scare, was half closed, casting a shadow shaped like a person. I wanted to believe it was my imagination, but then the curtain moved, just a little, like someone had pressed their hand against it from the inside. I ran out of the apartment, down the stairs, into the parking lot. I called 911 from beside my car, shaking so hard I dropped my phone twice. Police searched the apartment. They didn't find anyone, but they found something else. The bathroom vent cover above the shower was open. Screws hanging loose. Dust scattered across the tub. The officer looked at me and said, "Someone's been coming down through here." I asked how that was possible. He said in buildings this old, vents often connect between units, sometimes even into crawl spaces above the ceilings. Someone could have been moving between apartments unnoticed, watching, listening, waiting for the noise of the shower to cover the sound of the vent opening. They told me to stay somewhere else for the night. I didn't argue. Maintenance opened the vent the next day. Inside, they found a narrow crawl space filled with dust, pipes, old wiring, and a pile of things. Empty water bottles, a torn sweatshirt, 2 blankets, candy wrappers, and a small moldy notebook. Someone had been living up there, crawling through the ventilation system, dropping down into the shower when the noise covered them. The notebook had sketches inside, crude drawings of my bathroom, my sink, my shower curtain, and one page that stopped my breath. A drawing of me, standing in the tub, back turned, curtain closed. I moved out that same afternoon. Ava and her boyfriend let me crash on their couch for 3 weeks. I found a new apartment in La Mesa. Newer building, sealed vents, no shared crawl spaces. I should feel safe, but sometimes, when the room fills with steam after a shower, I see words form on the mirror, not written clearly, just faint, blurry shapes that fade too fast to fully read. But it always looks like the same word: no. I've lived in Seattle for 4 years now, long enough to know the city has 2 versions of itself. There's the one you see in travel magazines: Pike Place, the ferries, perfect coffee, twinkle lights reflecting off the water. And then there's the version underneath that, the one that wakes up after 10 p.m. I didn't really understand that second version until last winter, when I met the man from the Bainbridge Ferry. It started on an ordinary Friday. My friend Jess lives on Bainbridge Island, and I visit once or twice a month. The ferry ride is calm, peaceful, the perfect reset after a long week. That evening, I boarded the 7:55 ferry from Seattle. The deck was crowded, the air cold enough to bite, but I found an empty booth inside by the window. That's when I noticed him. He sat across the aisle. Early 40s, shaved head, thick winter coat. He wasn't looking out the window or reading a phone. He was staring straight at me. Not glancing, not accidentally catching my eye. Staring. I gave a polite smile, then turned my gaze to the water. People make awkward eye contact all the time. No big deal. But when I got off the ferry, I felt that tightness in my ribs that tells you someone is behind you. I looked back. He wasn't even pretending to walk somewhere else. He stepped off behind me and kept pace, matching every turn I made toward Jess's car. I told myself, he's probably just heading to his own car. But when Jess pulled up and I got in, I looked out the window. The man was standing still in the parking lot, watching, waiting. Jess noticed the way I froze. "Everything okay?" I wanted to say yes, but my voice came out flat. Someone followed me off the ferry. She glanced in the mirror. "Which one?" I pointed, but he was gone. At Jess's place, I tried to shake it off. We made dinner, watched a movie, played with her cat. Normal things. But around midnight, when I walked past her front window, something felt wrong again. Her house sits on a quiet residential street. No cars at that hour, no pedestrians. But across the road, under a street lamp, was a man-shaped silhouette, still, facing the house, facing my direction. I stepped back from the window, heart pounding. Jess saw my face and hurried over. "What is it?" "I think he followed me here." She looked out, but he wasn't there anymore. I didn't sleep much that night. Every time the house creaked or the wind scraped the fence, I jumped. Jess tried to reassure me. It's probably just some random guy, but she also offered to drive me back to the ferry in the morning. I accepted immediately. The next day, we pulled into the ferry terminal around noon. Jess watched me walk inside while she waited in her car. I stood near a group of tourists, keeping my back to the wall so no one could approach from behind. I didn't see the man anywhere. The relief washed through me so hard, I felt almost dizzy. When the ferry arrived, I stepped on board quickly and took a seat near the front. Halfway through the crossing, I went to the little cafe to buy a muffin. When I turned around, muffin in hand, my stomach plummeted. He was there, standing at the end of the aisle, staring straight at me. I stumbled backward, knocking into another passenger. "Hey, you okay?" they asked, but I couldn't answer. I hurried back to my booth, heart pounding, hands shaking. He stayed where he was for a full minute. Then he walked away, slowly, without breaking eye contact. When the ferry docked in Seattle, I waited. I didn't get off with the crowd. I stayed seated until nearly everyone had left. Finally, when the deck was almost empty, I stood and walked off. I didn't see him. Relief hit me again. Too soon. He was waiting at the terminal exit, leaning against a pillar, staring. I froze mid-step. He pushed off the pillar and took one step forward. I took one step back. Then I turned and walked fast toward the taxi line. The moment I did, I heard his footsteps pick up behind me. Not running, but walking with purpose. I practically dove into a cab. "Where to?" the driver asked. "Capitol Hill. Please, just go." The driver pulled out. I didn't look back until we merged onto Alaskan Way. He was standing on the sidewalk, watching the cab drive away. Expression blank. Head tilted slightly, like he was memorizing the direction. I got home, locked everything, tried to calm down. I kept telling myself, he doesn't know where you live. He can't find you. He's just some creep who'll forget about you tomorrow. I wanted to believe it. 2 nights later, I learned how wrong I was. I took my garbage down to the alley behind my apartment around 10 p.m., something I did almost daily without a second thought. But when I opened the building door, I stopped dead. Someone was standing halfway down the alley, under the dim orange light, looking directly at me. Same coat, same shaved head, same stillness. It was him. My hand tightened around the doorknob so hard, my knuckles popped. He took a step toward me. I slammed the door shut, sprinted upstairs, and called 911. 2 officers came, searched the alley, knocked on neighbors' doors. They found nothing. They told me to stay alert, file a report, call again if I saw him. But seeing him wasn't the problem. The problem was how he kept finding me. The next day, I installed a security camera, a simple doorbell cam. Cheap, but better than nothing. That night, around 3 a.m., I woke up to the sound of a notification. Motion detected at your door. Every hair on my body stood up. I opened the app with shaking hands. There he was, standing on my doorstep, inches from my camera, staring directly into the lens, not moving, not blinking, just breathing. He lifted one hand and slowly dragged a finger across the camera, making the speaker crackle. Then he leaned closer and whispered, "Why did you leave the ferry?" I dropped my phone. I didn't pick it back up. I called the police again, this time begging them not to leave until daylight. They stayed. Here's the part that still makes my skin crawl. While officers checked the hallway, one of them noticed something on the floor just outside my apartment door. Scratches, thin scratch marks across the wood. Messy, jagged lines, like someone had been using a key or a knife or something sharp, trying to jimmy the lock, trying to get inside, trying to get to me. I moved out 2 days later. Break lease fee, didn't care. Paid for professional movers, didn't care. Changed my number, didn't care. I just wanted to disappear from his world. The police tried to identify him from the camera footage, but they never found him. No match, no arrest, no sightings after I moved. But almost half a year later, when I took the ferry again for the first time, with friends this time, I felt someone standing behind me in line, breathing softly. Too close. When I turned around, no one was there. But on the metal railing beside me, faint and fresh, was a single fingerprint smudge. Right where someone would rest their hand if they'd been leaning in to watch me, just a little closer.